Hello, all, and welcome to this afternoon's white whiskey review, or white dog review, or moonshine review, whatever you want to call it. It's whiskey, or I guess it's not technically a whiskey because it's a mixture of the malt. The mash base is a mixture of corn and sugar. So I guess white dog would probably be the best way, or moonshine, I suppose. Um, So a few weeks back, I went with my father and his friends to tour a distillery on the Windward Side, where I'm from, which I no longer live. I wish I was back on the Windward Side, but I don't make enough money to live on the Windward Side anymore. So, and got to sample whiskey that they make there. But one thing that they also did an experiment with and bottled and sell at the distillery alone is this sort of white spirit. This is Koolau Distillery. I reviewed their Old Polly Road whiskey a while back, and it's a distillery founded by three retired Marines, I believe. And so it was a pretty interesting tour. I highly recommend, if you're in Hawaii, I highly recommend that you go on it. It's fairly interesting because the head distiller is a woman, which is something that is still fairly rare in the industry. It's slowly changing, but I just thought it was interesting to look at it um, from that angle. You know what I mean? Anyways, so yeah, we have this. It's only sold at the distillery. This is not sold on the shelves. And let's read the back label now, shall we? Inspired by the legacy of Oahu's east side during the Prohibition, sugar-based moonshine quenched a generation's thirst for some high-quality alcohol. Mahealani is a Hawaiian word for the fourth night of the full moon and is considered a fruitful day for fishing and planting, and we believe for distilling too. It says down here on the bottom, distilled and bottled by Koolau Distillery, Kailua, Hawaii, distilled from corn and cane. So I'm guessing pressed cane and their bourbon corn mash. Well, it's technically not a bourbon corn mash, but a corn mash. So what percentage is what? Have no idea. But when I sampled this, I was actually really surprised because most of the white spirits I've had have been fairly rough, but this one wasn't rough at all. So I guess without much further ado, let's just go and pour this one out. So this is 100 proof. So, you know, you know, rocket wheel strength. Of course, we're going to be pouring it into our Glencairn glass, because why wouldn't I? Have some water here to clean my palate. So, it's clear, as it should be. Now, what's interesting about this is that it really, the nosing really displays both the cane and the grain, I suppose, It has that sort of vegetal note that pressed cane, distilled pressed cane has, as well as that sort of smooth, corny, popcorny note that, corn mash has. And interestingly, when you can kind of combine it, I find that the smell is reminiscent of poi, though one of my father's friends said, yeah, it does remind me of pa'iai, which is sort of the immediately pounded poi. It's not the poi that you usually have to eat. It's the poi that's pounded out. which is usually much thicker and is watered down to actually make the poi that you eat. Poi being, food starch made with taro corn here in Hawaii. So it has very much that sort of smell of freshly pounded poi, which is earthy and vegetal at the same time. And there's also just like a hint of sweet floral notes there as well that I find nice. And it's not really, like I said, it's the combination of that pressed cane and corn mash, and it just putting those two scents together, those two bouquets together, kind of creates this third sort of unique sound, much in the same way you go and have two different notes play, you have like an interesting harmonic sometime emerge. Yeah, I was watching some music theory videos beforehand, so I don't know. That's the best that's the best analogy I could come up with off the top of my head. Sorry. So onto the palette now, shall we? So fairly sweet up front, but what gets me about this is how little bite it has for a white dog. Well, I wouldn't say that this is smooth, because you're never going to have like a raw distillate that's smooth. This one doesn't wallop you upside the mouth, and it doesn't feel, you don't feel it going down every inch of the way into your stomach. So you have an overall front that's sweet, and it's kind of sweet throughout. You can tell that it's basically pressed cane that was used in it. But underneath that is that nice mixture of both the vegetal and earthy note. Top note is pretty much the same as a regular nosing. And I'd say the finish is slightly brighter than the front and mids. Now, obviously, you can tell that you're drinking 100 proof liquor here, but at the same time, like I said, it doesn't have that sort of wallop of heat that a lot of white dogs have. Interesting. As I drank the water, then, I felt it in my gut. Having this on a fairly empty stomach, by the way, so please excuse any sort of slurring that may occur during the process of reviewing here. Yeah, there's not really anything that is offensive about the taste to me. It's pretty good, you know. It's not complex, but you're not going to get complexity out of a white dog, you know, out of Moonshine. It's going to get you where you need to go, and it's going to get you there easy. So, easy for the style, that is. Now, the only drawback, like I said, price point. This 375 milliliters, fairly expensive, but basically anything distilled in Hawaii right now is fairly expensive. And going through the distillery tour, you got to hear why. Basically, everything gets shipped in thousands of miles over the Pacific. You know, there's no corn farms, there's no oak forests or oak barrels. You know, it's all got to come from abroad. So yeah, that really adds to the cost of inputs. Same reason why home brewing beer is such a small hobby here in Hawaii, because you know I went and showed my cousin you know, the price list of the only home brew store in the state, and he was like, yeah, you wouldn't be saving money by home brewing, because apparently the price is low enough in most of the mainland that it's cheaper to homebrew and get good beer, you know what you're doing obviously, than it is to go to the store and buy beer. Not so the case here. Shipping is insane in Hawaii. Prices are insane in Hawaii, period. So yeah, I believe this cost me a little under $25 for this 375 milliliter bottle. Um, that's not that's kind of on par for locally made liquor, really, honestly. And yeah, I would recommend it just because, you know, a lot of the white dogs that I've had, especially ones made in state, have been pretty rough, you know. And this one, while still a white dog, and again, you're going to feel that alcohol heat, you know, has less heat and an interesting flavor. And that interesting flavor, you know, shines through a little bit more because of the fact that there's a bit less heat from the alcohol. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm guessing there's a bit more residual sugars or something like that, because it is pretty sweet up front and throughout. So maybe that's what's kind of cutting the burn a little bit. But yeah, I'm not a distiller. I'm not a scientist. I'm just kind of theorizing from the armchair here. Your mileage may vary. If you're a chemist, you can go and tell me how much I'm wrong. And I enjoy it. I like learning. If you want to correct me at any time about factual matters, um, go right ahead. If this is your wheelhouse and this is what you do. So, Mahealani Moonshine. You can get this if you go on the Koolau Distillery tour. Buy it from the just the kiosk at the end of the tour, I suppose, and enjoy, because it's a pretty good one. Yeah, and that is your White Dog / Moonshine review for this afternoon, folks. Cheers.